Throughout history, the sheer power of nature has been both awe-inspiring and devastating, and among the most terrifying natural phenomena are tsunamis. These colossal waves can obliterate entire coastlines in moments, leaving behind trails of destruction and tragedy, unlike any other natural disaster. From ancient disasters to modern-day catastrophes, here are some of the biggest and most devastating tsunamis in history. Before we begin, first let's understand the concept of mega tsunamis. You see, regular tsunamis are usually generated by undersea earthquakes, which displace large amounts of water. However, mega tsunamis, on the other hand, are extremely large and destructive tsunamis that result from massive displacement of water, typically caused by large-scale events such as volcanic eruptions, landslides, or asteroid impacts. Unlike regular tsunamis, mega tsunamis involve a colossal volume of water being displaced rapidly, leading to waves that can reach hundreds or even thousands of meters in height. The sheer size of the waves means that mega tsunamis can cause far greater catastrophic damage, far beyond what a typical tsunami can achieve. One such example was the 1958 Lituya Bay tsunami in Alaska. Lituya Bay is a beautiful fjord-like inlet located on the southeast coast of Alaska. It is about 7 miles long and 2 miles wide at its broadest point. The bay is bordered by steep glacial valleys and the Fairweather Fault, which is a major fault line running along the Pacific and North American plate boundary. This fault is highly active and has been the site of numerous earthquakes. One such earthquake happened on July 9, 1958, when the peaceful silence of Lituya Bay was shattered by a massive earthquake, measuring 7.8 on the Richter scale. It struck along the Fairweather Fault with the epicenter near the head of Lituya Bay. The seismic event was so intense that it triggered massive rock slides into the bay from the surrounding mountains. The most significant of these rock slides occurred on the northeast slope of Gilbert Inlet, where approximately 30 million cubic meters of rock plunged into the waters of Lituya Bay from a height of 915 meters or 3,000 feet. To put it into perspective, 30 million cubic meters of rock is roughly enough to fill 12,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools, and to drop down from such height in some respects created a similar reaction to that which would have occurred if an asteroid had fallen into the water. The impact of the landslide displaced an enormous volume of water, generating a mega tsunami that surged across Lituya Bay. The wave reached an unprecedented height of 1,720 feet or 524 meters above sea level, making it the tallest tsunami wave ever recorded. This mega tsunami tore through the bay at lightning speed, uprooting trees, stripping the mountainsides, and obliterating everything in its path. Despite the massive scale of the event, the remote location of Lituya Bay meant that its impact was relatively contained, sparing more populated areas from disaster. But though remote, Lituya Bay was not entirely uninhabited. In total, 5 people were in the bay at the time of the tsunami. Of these, 3 died when their boat was caught in the wave and sunk. The 2 people who survived, Howard Ulrich and his 7-year-old son, witnessed the tsunami up close and later described it as a wall of water coming from the sky. According to geologists, Lituya Bay has never been the same as the landscape was forever altered, and the event remains a stark reminder of the power of natural disasters. It's no secret that Japan is one of the most geologically active places on Earth. It's located where 3 tectonic plates meet, in a region known as the Ring of Fire, famous for frequent earthquakes and volcanoes. Among Japan's active volcanoes is Mount Unzen, a group of volcanoes near the city of Shimabara in Nagasaki, on the southern island of Kyushu. The volcano reawakened in 1990 after being quiet for a few hundred years, and in 1991 it erupted, causing a deadly pyroclastic flow that killed 43 people. However, the most devastating event linked to Mount Unzen happened in 1792. Mount Unzen's eruption in 1792 was part of a series of volcanic activities that began in the area in the late 18th century. The eruption reached its peak on May 21, 1792, when 2 large earthquakes shook the area and led to the collapse of one of the peaks, Mount Mayuyama, on the eastern flank of the Unzen complex. The collapse triggered a massive landslide that swept down the mountain toward the Ariake Sea. The debris from the landslide landslide buried the town of Shimabara, killing approximately 15,000 people. The energy of the landslide was so immense that as it entered the sea, it displaced a significant amount of water, leading to the generation of a mega tsunami. This tsunami triggered by the landslide was one of the deadliest in Japanese history. It radiated across the Ariake Sea, reaching the coast of the Shimabara Peninsula and the opposite shores of the nearby Amakusa Islands. The wave heights reached up to 100 meters in some areas, causing widespread destruction along the coastlines. The tsunami's impact was so devastating that it obliterated coastal villages, swept away homes, and claimed the lives of an estimated 5,000 additional people, on top of those killed by the landslide. The combined death toll from the landslide and tsunami is believed to be around 20,000, making this event the worst volcanic disaster in Japan's history. Speaking of volcanic disasters, next we have the 1980 Mount St. Helens tsunami in Washington, which was caused by the largest landslide ever recorded on land. Mount St. Helens had been dormant for over 120 years before it reawakened in March 1980 with a series of earthquakes and steam venting episodes.
I just felt an earthquake and just there's a hope. Northwest side. A7HEG, W7WFP. Now we've got an eruption down here. Now we got a big slide coming off. The slide is coming off of the west slope. Now we got a whole great big eruption out of the crater. And we got another that opened up on the west side, and the whole west side, northwest side is sliding down.
The most significant event occurred on May 18, 1980, when a massive earthquake triggered the largest landslide in recorded history. This landslide caused the northern face of the mountain to collapse and the eruption of the magma chamber beneath, leading to a violent lateral blast that devastated an area of about 230 square miles. The eruption resulted in the collapse of the volcano's northern slope and led to a huge pyroclastic flow. However, the collapse also caused another disaster, a tsunami in Spirit Lake, located near the base of the volcano. The landslide that began on the morning of May 18th was a colossal mass of rock, ice, and soil that slid down the mountain at a very high speed. Then this debris avalanche moved into Spirit Lake, which was located to the northeast of the mountain. The sheer volume of the landslide material displaced an enormous amount of water from the lake, causing a massive wave to surge across the lake's surface, taking the shape of a tsunami. Waves as high as 260 meters above the lake's surface scoured the surrounding hillsides, stripping trees and soil from the slopes and depositing them back into the lake as the water returned. The landslide and the inland tsunami dramatically altered the landscape of Spirit Lake. The lake's bottom was raised by about 61 meters due to the deposition of debris, and the water level rose by around 60 meters as a result of the landslide material filling the lake basin. The lake's size, too, was almost doubled, growing from 1,300 acres to around 2,200 acres, creating a significant change in the lake's surface area and volume. While the wave in Spirit Lake was confined to the lake itself and did not create a widespread tsunami that would have affected distant shorelines, its impact was still significant. The wave contributed to the destruction of the area around the lake, further exacerbating the environmental devastation caused by the eruption and landslide. The debris-laden wave also contributed to the overall changes in the landscape, including the formation of new landforms and the complete destruction of forests that once surrounded the lake. The event claimed 57 lives, destroyed hundreds of homes, and obliterated vast areas of forest. It also destroyed 47 bridges, 15 miles of railway, and 185 miles of highway, making it one of the most significant volcanic events in U.S. geological history. As we have just seen by the destruction of Spirit Lake, how inland tsunamis can be as deadly as mega tsunamis or regular tsunamis. However, this wasn't the only inland tsunami in recorded history. Just 17 years earlier, another inland tsunami had wreaked havoc in Italy, and to this day is considered one of the deadliest man-made disasters of the 20th century. That's right, a tsunami that was man-made and not due to an act of nature. Let us explain how. Just after the Second World War, Italy undertook several construction projects, including a hydroelectric dam near the mountain of Monte Toc. Located in the Piave River Valley, near the town of Longarone, in the Veneto region of Italy, the project was called the Vajont Dam and was designed to be one of the tallest dams in the world at the time, standing 262 meters high. The dam was constructed between 1957 and 1960 by the Italian energy company SADI, or Società Adriatica di Elettricità, and was intended to generate hydroelectric power by creating a large reservoir in the narrow Vajont Gorge, which would feed water into the turbines. However, the Vajont Gorge, through which the dam spanned, was a known landslide-prone area, and during the dam's construction, several geologists and engineers raised concerns about the stability of the mountains surrounding the reservoir, particularly Monte Toc, which loomed over the site. They had observed several signs of instability, such as fractures and small landslides, but despite these warnings, the dam's construction went ahead and the reservoir was gradually filled. As the reservoir's water level rose, the pressure on the mountainsides increased. In 1960 and 1961, small landslides into the reservoir indicated that the slope was becoming increasingly unstable. However, these warnings were largely dismissed by the authorities, who underestimated the potential danger, and as a result, on the evening of October 9, 1963, the inevitable happened. Not able to stand the building pressure, the mountain slope on the southern side of Mount Toc, overlooking the reservoir, suddenly gave way. Over 260 million cubic meters of rock, soil, and debris plunged into the reservoir at a speed of nearly 60 miles per hour. The impact of the landslide displaced a massive volume of water, generating a wave that rose 250 meters high and overtopped the dam. The sheer scale of the wave was unimaginable. Within minutes, the wave swept over the dam and surged into the Piave Valley below, destroying everything in its path. The towns of Longarone, Pirago, Villanova, Rivalta, and Faye were obliterated. Nearly 2,000 people lost their lives in the disaster, most of them in Longarone, which was completely wiped out in seconds. The force of the water was so great that it carried debris, trees, and parts of buildings for kilometers downstream, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. But what made the Vajont Dam disaster even more tragic was the fact that due to the violent speed and force of the disaster, a great part of the rescue efforts was hampered by the destruction of roads and infrastructure, leaving survivors and victims completely isolated. In the aftermath of the tragedy, an investigation revealed the full extent of the negligence that had led to the disaster. Investigations revealed that the disaster could have been prevented or mitigated if the warnings of geologists and engineers had been heeded. Today, the Vajont Dam still stands, a silent memorial to the lives lost, and a stark reminder of the catastrophic consequences of ignoring nature's warnings. The disaster is nothing but a lesson in the importance of respecting the natural environment and the limits of human engineering. The next tsunami on our list may not be the tallest tsunami, but sure is one of the deadliest. Also known as the Boxing Day tsunami, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami was one of the deadliest natural disasters in recorded history. It occurred on December 26, 2004, following a massive undersea earthquake off the west coast of northern Sumatra, Indonesia. This earthquake, with a magnitude of 9.1 to 9.3, was the third largest ever recorded on a seismograph and had the longest duration of faulting ever observed, between 8.3 and 10 minutes. The earthquake occurred along a subduction zone where the Indian plate was being forced beneath the Burma plate. The immense pressure and friction between these two tectonic plates were released suddenly, displacing a massive volume of water. This displacement of water due to the earthquake generated a series of massive waves that radiated outwards across the Indian Ocean. These waves traveled at speeds of up to 500 miles per hour and reached heights of up to 30 meters when they made landfall. The tsunami struck coastal areas of 14 countries, with the most severe impacts in Indonesia, Sri Lanka, India, and Thailand. Other affected countries included the Maldives, Somalia, Myanmar, and Malaysia. The waves even traveled thousands of miles, reaching as far as the east coast of Africa. The tsunami claimed the lives of an estimated 230,000 to 280,000 people. Indonesia was the hardest hit country, with over 167,000 deaths, particularly in the Aceh province on the northern tip of Sumatra. In Sri Lanka, over 35,000 people died, while India and Thailand reported approximately 12,000 and 8,000 deaths, respectively. In addition to the staggering death toll, millions of people were injured, and more than 1.7 million people were displaced from their homes. In India alone, over 5 million people were displaced due to the flooding. The tsunami also caused significant environmental damage. Coastal ecosystems, including coral reefs, mangroves, and wetlands, were severely affected. Saltwater intrusion from the tsunami waves waves contaminated freshwater supplies and agricultural land, further exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. Thankfully, the scale of the disaster triggered an unprecedented global humanitarian response. Governments, NGOs, and individuals from around the world mobilized to provide aid to the affected regions. The United Nations estimated that more than $14 billion was pledged in humanitarian aid, making it one of the largest relief efforts ever mounted. The Indian Ocean tsunami not only reshaped the physical landscape of the affected regions, but also left an indelible mark on the global consciousness, highlighting the need for better disaster preparedness and international cooperation in the face of such calamities. The next tsunami on the list was caused by an earthquake known as the Great East Japan Earthquake, or the Tohoku Earthquake. It was the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan, and the fourth most powerful earthquake recorded in the world since modern seismographs began in 1900. The disaster began with a massive undersea earthquake off the coast of the Tohoku region, northeast of Japan's main island of Honshu. The earthquake had a magnitude of 9.0, making it the fourth largest ever recorded. It occurred at the boundary where the Pacific Plate is subducting beneath the North American plate. This tectonic activity generated immense stress, which, when suddenly released, caused the seafloor to uplift and displace a vast amount of water, triggering a chain of enormous tsunamis with waves that soared to astonishing heights of up to 40 meter, equivalent to the height of a 12-story building. These immense waves swiftly traversed the Pacific Ocean at speeds of approximately 500 miles per hour, leaving coastal regions with minimal time to prepare and respond. When the waves hit Japan's northeastern coast, the destruction was unimaginable. Entire towns were obliterated. Buildings, cars, boats, you name it, all were swept away like toys. The disaster resulted in the deaths of approximately 15,900 people, with thousands more injured. Many of the casualties were due to the massive waves sweeping inland, causing widespread flooding and destruction. Over 450,000 people were displaced from their homes, many of whom had no option but to seek temporary shelter in evacuation centers. The tsunami caused extensive damage to infrastructure too, including roads, bridges, and buildings, with nearly 25 million tons of debris lying in its wake. In the end, apart from the massive death toll, the total damage and economic loss was estimated to be approximately $360 billion, making it the most expensive natural disaster in the history of Japan. Finishing things off, the Samoa Island tsunami of September 29, 2009 was a devastating natural disaster that left a lasting impact on the Samoan Islands, including Samoa, American Samoa, and parts of Tonga. The disaster was triggered by a powerful undersea earthquake with a magnitude of 8.1, striking just before 7 a.m. local time. The earthquake's epicenter was located near the Tonga Trench, about 190 kilometers south of Samoa, and at a depth of 11 miles. This seismic event occurred along a subduction zone where the Pacific Plate is forced beneath the Indo-Australian plate, releasing immense energy and displacing a significant volume of water, which in turn generated a massive tsunami. Within minutes of the earthquake, tsunami waves began to radiate outwards from the epicenter, reaching the Samoan Islands with devastating speed and force. The tsunami waves, some reaching heights of up to 14 meters, struck the southern coasts of Samoa, American Samoa, and Tonga with little warning. The waves inundated coastal villages, sweeping away homes, infrastructure, and lives in a matter of moments. The impact of the tsunami was plain catastrophic. In Samoa, the hardest hit areas were along the southern coastline, where entire villages were destroyed. The capital city, Apia, also suffered significant damage. In American Samoa, the destruction was equally severe, with many coastal communities being obliterated. Tonga, though less affected, still experienced considerable damage and loss of life. The tsunami claimed the lives of 189 people across the affected regions, 149 in Samoa, 34 in American Samoa, and 9 in Tonga. Additionally, hundreds of people were injured and thousands were left homeless, their communities reduced to rubble. The disaster led to over 200 fatalities and approximately $200 million in damages. The event was further complicated by a rare phenomenon called a doublet, where two earthquakes occurred in close succession. This added to the energy of the tsunami waves, increasing their destructive power. Security footage from an FBI office on the island captured the initial impact of the waves, showing the destructive force force as they pushed cars and quickly disrupted power. The environmental damage was also significant, with coastal ecosystems, including coral reefs and mangroves, suffering from the force of the tsunami and the debris it carried. In the years following the tsunami, efforts were made to strengthen tsunami warning systems, improve evacuation plans, and educate the public on disaster response. Despite the immense challenges, the resilience of the affected communities shone through as they worked to rebuild their lives, supported by both local and international efforts. The disaster left an indelible mark on the region, but it also highlighted the strength of the human spirit and the importance of solidarity in the face of adversity. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one. On your way out, please click on the like button, and for more such contents, subscribe to our new channel.